guys, my name is Kara Brown. I am the author of Queen of Swords and Silence, and I'm here today to talk to you about how to survive Camp NaNoWriMo. I did a poll on Twitter, and the choices were make a funny video about an author life or talk about how to survive NaNoWriMo, and everybody was kind of like, let's do how to survive NaNoWriMo, which is appropriate because on the day that this video is coming out, it is November 1st, which is the first day of NaNoWriMo. If you are not aware of what NaNoWriMo is basically short for National Novel Writing Month, which is where people get together and they try to crank out a 50,000 word manuscript within the month of November. There's always some very interesting thoughts about NaNoWriMo. You know, you have the hardcore writers basically saying that every month is NaNoWriMo, and then you have what we like to refer to as the tourists coming in, and they're working on the same book that they've been working on for a couple of years. But either way, I actually do like NaNoWriMo because of the energy and the atmosphere that is created by it, and you get to meet a lot of interesting people, and some individuals who never thought about writing before take it up as a full-time hobby, or they go for it professionally, and it's just a great period of the year for me to enjoy. Now, you can throw a rock and hit somebody who's made a video about how to survive NaNoWriMo. It's a pretty abundant topic. Everybody does it because everybody has a different idea or a thought or all that stuff. And the tips that I'm going to give you aren't really so much of like, you know, make sure that you're plotting, make sure your characters are fleshed out, you know, all the stuff that you should have been doing during Peptober. The things I want to talk about are things that I do as a professional writer, from me to you, whether you be a first-time offender for Nano, or you have come back 3 times and you're just looking for a different take on it. So with that, let's just go ahead and we'll do tip number 1. So tip 1, drink water. Sounds pretty basic, but if you consider all the tea and coffee that you are about to drink, you may forget that you need to drink water. When I have coffee, and I do drink coffee, you know, throughout the day, I always make sure that I stop drinking coffee at 1 p.m. and I make sure that for every 8 ounces of coffee that I drink, I have about 24 ounces of water. If you ever see me at my workstation, I've usually got like my cup of coffee and then I've got a giant mug of water right next to me. Water is really good for your brain. It's really important that you stay hydrated, especially when you are consuming borrowed energy things. So for the way that caffeine works is you're kind of borrowing energy later for you to use now. That's why people usually have a crash later. But while being hydrated doesn't really combat that, it does combat the dehydration that does come with that. So just make sure that you guys are drinking water. The next thing that I would recommend is make sure that if you do need to have snacks, that you have healthy snacks. I have seen a couple of videos from individuals who say that make sure that you keep your energy level up, and then they wave around a family-sized bag of Starburst. That is a really quick way to get obesity. That is a very fast track to having an additional crash. So if you're drinking coffee and tea and then you're having all this sugar, you are going to crash really hard, and you are going to feel horrible, absolutely horrible by week 10 if you continue to keep this kind of food intake up. So whatever snack that you feel like you need to do, just make sure that it's of a healthy variety. I mostly like to have like walnuts or something that's easy to chew right next to me. You guys don't really see it on camera, but when I'm writing at home, I actually have like a little thing of like cinnamon sticks, and I'll chew on those while I'm writing. It's just something for me to kind of have a thing for. This third tip is making me feel like a nutritionalist, but the third tip that I would recommend for the month of November, if you are doing NaNoWriMo for the first time, is to take this weekend to actually meal plan the rest of your month. In fact, actually, as you're watching this, I'm literally at the grocery store right now picking up all the food that I'm going to need for November, and I'm going to spend this weekend actually going through all the food and sorting it out and putting the stuff that we can put in crock pots in the freezer and a whole bunch of other things, because when it comes to trying to juggle work, your family, your obligations, and then adding writing on top of it, it's really easy for you to kind of be like, oh, well, you know, let's just eat out today, or let's just order in, and you start eating a lot of processed food and more food that does make you feel bad over time. And if you have the ability to just take something out of the freezer and to go and put it in the crock pot, it's a lot easier and way healthier. It's better for your body, all that stuff. And for me personally, the big reason I do that is it's just one thing I don't have to worry about. Like, I know it's been taken care of, and that at a certain time it's going to be done, and my husband and I can eat it, and it's a low fuss, no muss kind of approach. I use that crock pot like nobody's business. It's like my lifesaver. It's how I make food pretty much 80% of the time. So, I mean, just a thing. If that doesn't work for your lifestyle, it doesn't work for your lifestyle. But if you can do it, try to do it. And if not on a monthly basis, try to do it on a weekly basis at least. My next tip actually has to do with your workspace. Now, I know that there are a lot of articles that are out there that say that creative and genius people live in messy houses and all that other stuff, but I can find just about as many articles that talk about how in order to have a productive work experience, you need to have a clean workspace. So what I would recommend is that wherever you're working at, you know, just take the time to make sure that it's tidy before you do it. Again, there are studies that show that having a cluttered workspace does cause stress and disorganization. It's a distraction and a number of other things. So just spending anywhere between 15 and 30 minutes just tidying up your workspace, or maybe just a part of your house wherever you're working at, is good for your mental health as well. Now, if you got kids and stuff, I'm sorry, I know it's a little hard. The sixth tip has to do with getting out of your chair. So when you're doing Nano, you are going to be spending a lot of time sitting down and writing. And it's when you spend a lot of time being sedentary, it does have a toll, again, on your mentality, on your thought process, and on your body. So what I would recommend is that if it is possible for you to do so, to try and be active in some kind of capacity. Now, not telling you to go get a gym membership and to wake up at 5 a.m. like I do and go to the gym, but what I am saying is that when you are engaging in writing sprints, or you are having any kind of writing session, to occasionally get out of your chair, walk around, stretch, do whatever you got to do to get the blood flowing. And doing that is also good for your brain too. It kind of resets it a little bit, lets you come back with a little bit more energy. Now, if you are going to be the kind of person that's going to go and write in a coffee shop, you can just kind of get up out of the chair, stretch, shake out the legs, move your arms in circles. Nobody's going to think weird if you do that, except if you just start doing yoga in the middle of the coffee shop. That might get you some stares, but then again, I guess it depends on the coffee shop that you go to. Regardless, try to have some kind of activity while you're doing your writing sprints, just to help, the blood circulate a little bit. The sixth tip that I would recommend is make time for downtime. This has actually been a really hard one for me to learn this year. For those of you who don't know, I work from home, and pretty much the moment I wake up to when I go to sleep, I am engaged at work. So I have to make time for downtime. Now, this sometimes takes the form of me having a glass of wine with my husband at dinner, or it also takes shape in me going to a coffee shop with writing wife and us just engaging in some kind of guilty pleasure project that we are doing. Regardless of what your thing is that helps your brain reset and charge and helps you kind of take some distance from your project, it's really easy for people in the month of November to put things off because they're really focused on the project, and they always tell themselves it's just for 1 month. But man, if you are not used to doing this at all, after 1 week, it's going to be hard, and I absolutely promise you are going to experience slumps on day 5, day 12, 15 for sure. I don't know why it's always 15, 20, and 25. Those are usually the days where I see people having tiny breakdowns. So again, make that time to have your downtime, recharge, distance yourselves, and just kind of relax. So tip number 8, which, I'm talking about making time for downtime in tip 7, and tip 8, you need to make time for sleep. Again, when it comes to NaNoWriMo, a lot of people like to push things off because they're sacrificing XYZ in order to get the project done. So on top of making sure that you're not drinking too much coffee or eating too much sugar and eating right, you also need to make sure that you're sleeping. All these things that I'm talking about do affect your brain and the way that your brain functions. So if you sleep deprive yourself, your brain is not going to be as engaged. You're going to be more likely to be distracted, staring off into space, being unproductive. So just make sure that whatever amount of sleep works for you, that you are getting it. Now, I could sit here and be like, you need to get 7 hours every day, but not everybody, some people function just fine on 6, some people function just fine on 7. Whatever your hour time frame is, just make sure that you are getting that. So tip 9 has to do with find your time and place. Wherever and whenever you write your best, that's really where you need to hammer down on that. And I can't really tell you what works best for you. I know what works best for me. I also know what works well for Brandon Sanderson and Rachel Aaron because they've shared that information. So for example, Brandon Sanderson writes his best in his recliner chair, usually in the evening, and Rachel Aaron does her best time in a coffee shop in mid-morning. And they know that because they took the time to kind of figure out when they write their best, and then that's usually the window that they write. I personally write best in my office in the morning. Anything after 1 p.m. is not going to be very good. In fact, 1 p.m. is kind of where I'm doing my more analytical stuff, I'm actually doing editing. I'm not doing the creative writing or the drafting process. And I'm also doing college assignments during then, so reading, comparing, things like that. There's something about trying to do that in the after, something about trying to draft or write a story and after 1 p.m. just doesn't work for me. I do it really well in the morning, not so much in the afternoon. Anyway, regardless of that, know when and where you write your best. Is it at the kitchen table, in the morning, evening, or the afternoon? Do you write better in coffee shops when there are other people around you? Just take a moment to kind of do that self-assessment, figure out those things for yourself, and then kind of go from there. Or if you don't know, one of the things that you can do during week 1 is you can try a couple different things and see which one works for you, and then try to stick with that for the rest of the month. So tip number 10 is about, since we're talking about writing in coffee shops potentially, one of the things that is huge that happens with NaNoWriMo is going out and writing with other people. Depending on the local area, you can find a NaNoWriMo group that will basically meet at certain places, and they can have what they call write-ins. It's basically where y'all get one to one place and you write for like hours on end. The first write-in that my group is having is actually at 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. and I will not be doing that because that's not my optional writing time. But they have other ones like on Saturday. They're going to meet between like 1 and 4, and like, you know, it just really depends. Go take a moment to kind of find out where those groups are. You can find them on Facebook, you can find them on Meetup, you can go to the actual Nano website and find the groups on there. Like, there's a lot of different ways that you can find them, but what I'm trying to tell you is go find these groups, go meet these people, because nobody's going to understand your struggle with Nano like somebody who is doing Nano. So, you know, awkwardly engage with people, because it's always an awkward engagement. Kind of, you know, support each other, talk about your stuff, write together, make some friends, all that stuff. So those are my 10 tips that I would recommend to anybody that has to try to do Nano and how to survive it. A lot of mine are obviously the very like health and diet focused, because that's kind of just, that's my thing. But I know a lot of you guys have a lot of other tips that you would recommend to give, and I would love to hear them. I would love for you to share them with other people who may be seeing this video for the first time and are kind of looking for tips and just kind of branching out for the first time. So again, pop that advice down below. Let's go ahead and have that conversation and provide a resource for other people who are trying to do this for the first time. And yeah. Also, feel free to share what your plans for Nano are. Are you going to do it at home? Are you going to go to coffee shops? Like, what is your agenda? I know that I'm going to be spending a lot of time in live streams and going wherever Writing Wife tells me to go, so that will be fun. So that's the end of the video. Thank you so much for getting to this point. If you are not sure if I know what I'm talking about when it comes to all this writer nonsense that I like to preach about here on my channel, I got a link down below to a newsletter. You can subscribe to that and you get access to a free short story. You can peruse it, see if I know what I'm talking about. If I don't worry, you can go ahead and disregard my advice, unsubscribe from the newsletter. I will not have any hard feelings. I just won't forget ever. But in all honesty, please do your due diligence and check my credentials. Don't just take my advice because I'm a person on YouTube talking about stuff. Having said that, if you do like the short story, the link to my book is also down below. I would definitely appreciate if you would take a look at that, maybe purchase it, maybe leave a review. I'm trying to get 50 before December, but if you do happen to like it, there's a link to my book down below too. But if you do like it, I got a book out too. It would mean a lot if you would, you know, read it, review it. I'm trying to get to about 50 reviews by New Year's. It's a lofty goal, but I'm trying to get there. Before I forget, in the description down below for the video, there is a link to a spreadsheet in regards to live writing sprints. So if you are not an individual who is actually able to leave your house, but you do have access to the internet, the channels that will be doing live writing sprints are going to be available down below. You can check that out, see which ones you can go to. All the times there are in EST, so you will have to convert them, but fear not, there is a converter down there too for you. So, but that's the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'm going to talk to y'all again real soon.